right. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, November 22nd. Logan here from Lucky Trader. We'll be joined by Lou shortly to break down the week ahead of Thanksgiving week ahead of NFTs. So lots to get to this week. There's a whole host of new news as a result of items that we were chatting about last week that are now supposed to actually take place. Things like Avastars Replicants. We have actually coming up on next Monday, we have CloneX, but we'll have the pre-sale during the course of this week. Mary Mods should be revealing any moment now. There's a whole host of things that we've talked about in the last week or so that will finally be kind of unveiling themselves throughout the course of the next few minutes to the next hour as we go ahead and talk a little bit about NFTs. And as we do wait for Lou to hop in here, please do want to allow everyone to add into the chat any comments, questions, feedback about this particular week and things that you're curious about learning about. In particular, over the course of the last few days, had a ton of news about like Wolf Game, right, which we're going to be chatting a little bit about. We just dropped an article at luckytrader.com, courtesy of Tony Marquis, about some of the most recent news that has come up here in the last Wolf Game's been live for 72 hours. But there's been lots and lots of news about the project, even in the last 12 to 24 hours, as there's been a couple contract exploits, quick fixes to those exploits, and plenty of interesting game mechanics as well. Looks like we've got Lou coming in. I'm going to bring him in. Lou, good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Yes, we're here to talk about NFTs, the week ahead in NFTs. I was just chatting about Wolf Game and some of the most recent news that's dropped about that. I want to get into that, but I also want to make sure for folks that are hopping in, they have an opportunity, of course, to drop things in the chat, ask Lou questions, as we always do in this fun show. Lou, your morning's going okay?
Yeah, I'm having my mic issue, but I'm restarting my PC, but this is why I have multiple options so I can adjust if needed.
Awesome. Yes, Ooh. Lou is very, very flexible. I think we can get right into it, though. I gave my little 2-minute spiel just to hold the water as you were hopping in here. So one of the big things from this week, we saw a tweet that came this morning or maybe late last night that I think kind of verified this, was Avistars and the Replicants, Avastar Replicants. So for those who are not aware, we had talked about this last week as we were preparing for it. We're rehashing again only because there was a slight delay. So Ryan has asked, definitely interested in hearing more about the Avastar project you mentioned last week. Lou, as I get the screen set up here and a little bit of a scramble as we prepare here, do you want to take away and try to explain a little bit about Avastars?
Yeah, so Avastars Replicants, basically they have their Series 1. Actually, they don't call it Series 1. They call it, these are the Prime Avastars, so like Generation 1, but there's 5 series of them. They have about 25,000 that have already been minted. I don't know, maybe June, July is when that ended. But then we have the Replicant Factory is what they're calling it, and it's basically a breeding process where you can take anywhere from 2 to 5 of your Avastars, and you pick one trait from each of them, and then you basically build a new Avastar. So you can take rarer traits, combine them together, and that's like the game theory. We've seen it with goats with the Z. They had something like this. But Avastars, their whole thing is like it's on chain, and it's Jimmy with a 1, Jimmy.eth. He's the head of this project. And so I think tonight there's some people that are able to do replicants, and then tomorrow is like the full on.
Yeah. So tomorrow, and we'll be updating this on the site right now, but tomorrow is the 22nd, or is today the 22nd? I'm losing.
Today's 22nd.
Today's 22nd. Oh boy. All time blurs together in the NFT world, Lou. I never actually know what formal date it is. Yeah, but I believe that you're right. The public availability here for Avastars is going to be tomorrow. I think it's a really interesting potential project. We had Gary V do a little bit of a pump. Do you remember that? Maybe a few months ago.
There was like a great day.
It was a great day, yes, for those who hold plenty of Avastars. But otherwise, though, we mentioned this on one of the streams last week. Otherwise, the project itself has been awfully quiet.
Yeah.
For the most part, there's not really been too much, movement in either direction as it pertains to significant growth of the floor or anything like that. So it's been interesting. I do think that we had a question, or sorry, Ryan's comment, definitely interested about learning more. I think this is a really interesting project for somebody that is new to the space to like give some of your time to learning more, right? Which hopefully Lou has just described a little bit about the replicant process, kind of the merging of traits into sort of well, they're calling them replicants, right? But you could call them some sort of mutated version, right? If we wanted to piggyback off the mutant thing. I think this is a really interesting project to potentially give a little bit more time and effort to if you are a new person coming into this space. Really solid team, right? Spent a lot of time getting this project right, hopefully, right? As we see the execution of the replicant stuff take place here in the next couple days. And the entry point, Lou, I don't know if you saw this when I pulled up the page, and I'm dealing with a little bit of, I don't know if it's an internet thing or we're all getting rugged this morning.
It's like
So
0.15.
yeah, 0.13, I think I had seen 0.15, which is really reasonable. Now, when you put it in US dollars, may not seem as reasonable. However, pretty reasonable as it pertains to like entering the NFT space, right? And putting your hard-earned ETH towards a particular project. This is one that has like a legitimate team behind it, a lot of resource behind it. Notable collectors, notable holders. You mentioned last week historical provenance, right? There are a lot of pros here. The cons just is that it has never really pumped. That's not a bad thing. I don't know that we should label it a con.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and the way that I look at it is this is more of like a long-term project where it's sort of always going to be around. Gary Vee always harps on things like that. But in this case, I think one difference is they started in like February of last year. So they've always kind of taken their time in getting things together. It's a higher supply than most of these other projects that we've seen. So I think that's partially why we see floor lower and why it doesn't particularly pump like these other ones. But I mean, long term, a lot of other projects have copied them in ways.
Yeah.
So the things with this is because it's the older one, like unique owners, only 1,600 unique owners. I think Pranksy has like 1,600 Avastars by himself.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep you've looked into Avastars, but the top like 5 holders, I think combined to like 5,000 of the Avastars.
Yeah, that is a tough part of this entire thing, right? We've spent a lot of time talking about the unique holders, right? The amount of listings by now within 10% of the floor, which is what you're seeing over here at the right-hand side of the project rankings page. Again, this is accessible for all projects. I'm just sorted on Avastars right now. As sort of 3 like little notes that maybe people aren't paying a whole lot of attention to, right? We're so focused on floor price. We're so focused on mainly only floor price, right? Floor price, volume, those types of things, which of course are important. However, oftentimes it gets overlooked, like what can happen economically with a particular project if someone holds 80% of them, right? They can cascade things downwards very, very quickly should they need liquidity or just basically want to completely end the project, right? Not suggesting that Pranksy or any of those holders would do so.
Yeah, and I think in this case, like if they were, wouldn't they have happened by now?
Probably.
So like I said, like he's been holding a lot of these since February of last year, like a long time. And part of that, I think people are waiting for this replicant thing because at the time it was new. Like no one had ever done something like this before. And what they're doing is they have the art token. So each Avastar you own at the end of the series, you get a token for it. So obviously tokenomics have been a huge deal recently. but you spend an art token to give up one of those traits. So when you have 5 Avastars, combining them together, you're spending 5 of those tokens. And the token has gone up in price the last few days. Since they announced that, it went from $40 to now it's like $90. So, I mean, it costs, what's that? That costs about $450 just to do the replication. And then you
Right.
probably have to, pay gas or whatever.
This is an interesting point. There's a couple questions about Wolf Game. We're gonna get into that in just a second. Jimmy McNeilis, J1MMY, seems to care more about Bored Apes than his own project. I think Jimmy is a pretty ardent defender of Avastars. I don't see him talk about it that often. That I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Hopefully, it's behind the scenes stuff that's happening. But of course, yeah, I mean, it should be noted, right? They're using his Bored Apes for kingship, like. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit more oomph.
It's a branding thing, right? It's like getting your name out. You're on top of the big name stuff going on.
Yeah.
And like right now, Bored Apes is the big thing. And if you could push Bored Apes, then because that's currently the one that's like the hot in like mainstream culture, that's the one that's getting the most fame. So to attach yourself to that is really just being like, hey, I'm a leader in the space, I think is more so where that angle becomes.
Yeah, which is good though for Avastars, right? I mean, that's part of the when we were talking about strong team, notable people like Jimmy and the other Avastars folks have been in the industry for a very, very long time. They are the true OGs, right? And that's why, like, you do see the holders of Avastars, for example, being so low, right? This project is very old, and the people that were minting it were the original folks in the NFT ecosystem, which is a small selection of folks that are either still around or, kickstarted the entire thing. So a lot of talk about Avastars. We will continue to have more information about Avastars as the replicant process sort of takes off. I think I saw the first 42 replicants or something had been done, or maybe even the first one or something via the tweet earlier this morning. We're getting some questions about when Wolf. We have to talk about it, not only as it pertains to like kind of recapping the weekend, but also the very near future as well. Wolf Game, which exploded onto the scene in a stealth mint last week, right? Last Thursday? Was it last Thursday? We talked about it very briefly on the Friday show as things were sort of still developing here. But of course, I don't think any of us could have foreseen what transpired over the course of Friday into the weekend, right? It just went absolutely bonkers.
Everything people were talking about.
And it's still in most ways everything what people are talking about. So I saw, of course, you can take a look at the project rankings page over at luckytrader.com. It's going to have all your I'm sorted on the last month, so that's why you see these huge greens. But if you take a look at like the last week, you still have the remnants of that bull market that we chatted about with doodles, and chain runners has gone nuts, right? And you had the very tail end of that Bored Ape and stuff. But if you look at like last 6 hours, last 1 hour, it's like actually things have calmed down in terms of Wolf Game. But
day probably. Yeah, because they paused a bunch of stuff. So last 6 hours, it probably isn't.
Yeah, if you just take a look at the last day, you're right. Double the volume of chain runners, which was second. You can add up chain runners, CryptoPunks, Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, and maybe mutants. I don't know. My mental math here is sliding just a bit, and still not equal the total volume from Wolf Game. You saw Gary V, a whole host of other notable folks hop in here. And there's been a ton of news about the Wolf Game. So let's first talk about some of the like historical news from the last, I don't even know, 12 hours. We were talking about this like late last night, last 12 hours or so. We actually just dropped, let me get to the homepage. Tony on the news team here at Lucky Trader just dropped a little bit of an article on the homepage at luckytrader.com. Wolf Game, all we know. It's just going to give you some insight into what has happened over the last like 24, 12, I don't even know how many hours it's been. There's been a ton of news, right? They launched phase 2 of the game with land, with farmers, right? And additional ways to use and or gather. I'm not sure the right word to say, wool, whatever. And then also, though, in that same time, there's been like at least one other contract exploit that's been found, maybe 2.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there are 2 now, I think, but the original one is what caused the unstaking, and that they basically aren't doing that version of the game. I don't know if that's how you word it. That dynamic of the game, they've just cut out so that you
Right.
can't. But then there's another exploit that you can get more wool than originally. So I think it was like instead of 500,000, you could end up getting 6 million wool if you did the exploit correctly. And that part of the game still kind of needs to exist for everything else to work. So that's where they stopped it again, and they have to sort of figure out, okay, how can we avoid this?
Yeah. So this was from Tony's article that just hit the site at luckytrader.com. The one that you were just referencing, right? The exploit you're just referencing, how to claim 300 times the amount of wool that you were supposed to be able to claim, right? 20,000 into 6 million wool, which at the time of recording, maybe it's a little bit different. When we published this article, wool was around 15 cents. So, claiming 6 million of that would have been insane. According to the project leaders, the exploit was never used, right? So they were able to implement a quick fix, which is great for all Wolf game holders. Potentially not for any black hats out there that would have loved to have exploited this.
In Not Stoop's standpoint, it's like, gotta pack your bags, exploit it once and then tell them about it.
Yes. Poor Not Stoops. So Not Stoops did get a farmer and a unique special parcel of lands, a protector of all of us. So if you're a Wolf game holder, you should maybe consider dropping a small token of appreciation to Not Stoops for not completely rugging the game. That could have been super detrimental to the entire project, of course.
I mean, if he did it, that was like $1 million he could have walked away with.
Yeah.
Look at that price action.
Yep.
See?
We included the little chart from Dex Tools about the fluctuation, the volatility. I mean, this is par for the course in cryptocurrencies and in, play to earn gaming and in-game currency tokens, utility tokens, whatever. So it's not necessarily to be concerned about this, right? Again, this is kind of par for the course, but just speaking for all the news that's come out. So you have like the excitement and kind of your initial peak, and then you've got you're finding a price, and then you have more excitement, and then you have contract exploit stuff, and then it's still settling a little bit. But anyway, all this information is available for you on the site if you want to read a little bit about some of the notes from Wolfgame. That's the kind of the historical side. Lou, let's go to kind of the upcoming stuff, right? So late last night, it was at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. Last night, it was announced that phase 2 of the game, phase 2, introducing not only the wolves and sheep, but also farmers and land. Do you want to give a little bit of an insight into phase 2?
Yeah. So the way that I understand it is there basically 20,000 plots of land, 20,000 farmers. The idea right now, I don't know how much we know about the land per se. So the weird part, so you can look at it right that you can even see it in the picture. Like they oversold land, like the claim. So it was, if you have Gen 0, if you have a Gen 0 sheep or wolf, you could claim land, but they have over 400 overclaimed. So the question right now is, was there an exploit in that part too? So there's a lot of questions with the devs right now. Yeah. But then what they were doing, and I don't know, did they stop it? No, it looks like it's still going down. So outside of the 10,000, they were doing a Dutch auction for the remaining 10,000 parcels of land. So for people that haven't been a part of the game, want to get in, this is a way to get in. And I'm seeing that, okay, maybe this was a UI issue that it pops up that way. But I feel like if that's a UI issue, then you could potentially just in the code
fix
just
the UI
force
issue.
the number to say 10,000 or something. But anyway, so the other 10,000 started at 0.69 ETH, and it's Dutch auctioning down. So now it's at 0.4. There's about, there's less than 2,000 of those that have been sold off so far. I think part of that reason is because on secondary, 0.4 is about what the floor is right now. And then on farmers, they're supposed to multiply what your production is. So that's the idea of farmers. They cost they cost wool to buy. So it's like 10,000 wool equals a farmer.
Yeah.
And when they launched this, 10,000 wool was about half an ETH. So basically, to get into the game, if you didn't already have a sheep, it costs you around half an ETH to get in at
I
this
thought
point.
this was 69,420 wool.
Yeah, right. That's what it originally said. So this is, it's been such a mess. Like they've been changing this page a bunch. The devs, as Babs is saying, they sent 1,100 ETH out of the wallet earlier today. I don't know. So when that happens, I don't know from your point of view, but like from my point of view, it's not necessarily concerning to me because at the end of the day, I feel like they're paying the people that have been part of the team, right? So they're moving it away to then disperse the funds out. It's more like a security risk, I think, like keeping it all in one place. That's what happens when I see like them sending from the wallet. One discussion that we've had in some discords earlier today was there's a lot of big name people in here that have been backing it. Like Gary Vee was even this morning still buying wolves. And so I always talk about like reputation on the line, and it just seems like in this case, like less likely for a rug.
Yeah. Well, they stand to gain, like if they run away with 1,100 ETH, which is a ton, right? They stand to gain though based on royalties and like if they sell out the land, right? They stand to gain much more in the course of, if you think about the long term, right? Which is Gary Vee's whole play, but then also like the game itself, this phase 2, right? Farmers land. There's something else I'm missing there. Phase 2, whatever. Anyway, farmers land. Those are the big things. 2022, right? They're already talking about 2022. So, which is not long-term necessarily, but in the NFT ecosystem, it feels long-term. So hopefully that is not a major concern.
Yeah. I mean, the concern is 3 days ago, they come out with this game and it says on the homepage, like no roadmap, just sheep on the blockchain. And then now once it breaks, all of a sudden they have the resources to then go back and create this whole game. So the way I've been comparing it is it's like Pixel Vault Part 2, and these are now the planets where they're coming out and they're like, oh, you didn't get into this. Now it's a high price thing. Here's another way to get in. And there's adding all these layers to a game that was very simple, I'd say, to follow. Like, okay, you're shearing your wool and you can trade that in for money, or you can buy and create more sheep to then shear more wool. If you shear wool, you can't unstake that sheep for 2 days. So like it was pretty simple mechanics. And now they're like
simple?
really complicating. Well, compared to what it is now, it's like what's this land all about? What are these farmers for? Like why are some people getting them for free? Why, like you said, like they changed the cost of things like 10 minutes in, and it's like why did they, it seems like they just rushed it out, which I mean, very obviously timing wise, but they kind of had to because they paused the minting, and then all of a sudden there was just no supply of sheep out there.
Yeah, that when you put it that way, like I wasn't really thinking about it like that, but that is a little concerning. I mean, I wonder if this is how Yuga Labs felt though, too. You know what I mean? We're like, so the original Bored Ape Yacht Club roadmap, I know we're getting a little off topic, but the original Bored Ape Yacht Club roadmap, basically it did have mutants, sort of, right? It had the arcade room or arcade whatever machine that was meant
on a game,
Yeah, so like they had things on the roadmap, but like when the success reaches a certain level, you're like, oh shit, I need to do XYZ because, right? To like maintain this mountain of hype. And I think Yuga Labs certainly did a much better job, and hopefully the steadiness of like the climb there helped. This is a little concerning for me on that. Like, I'm hopeful that behind the scenes, all this stuff was already planned. I think that's what everybody's like hoping for, right? And it very well may be the case. I know we're clearly speculating here. So it very well may be the case that all this was planned, but
maybe it's because they have the funding now. And they're like, well, they have a little bit of a runway now. So they're like, oh, well, now they have connections with Beanie and Gary, and they could be like, hey, do you know a dev that could help us create a game? And like maybe there's more layers now because they have more resources.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what we're seeing, probably, and I think that's totally okay. My concern is intentions. We've talked about a lot before, right? Is like, is the intention to rush all this stuff out to capitalize on the hype and like fill your pockets as much as possible, or
Right.
are the intentions to actually build this? What do they call it? They didn't call it the Farmville ecosystem thing, right? I saw some comparisons to kind of like Farmville.
I mean, I think just
What do they
because
call
it's
it?
a farm, people might think that.
A full feature blockchain economy to be released in 2022. That's what they called it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so long as intentions are, I'm hopeful that's the case. Like, hopefully this has been in the works for forever. Nobody can really know. I mean, the devs may know, and those closest to the project may know how long this has been in the works. We've just been talking
So I
about,
don't think so. I
yeah,
think it's more so because of their initial plan broke
that's
that
true.
they're pivoting to a new plan. I guess it's more like that,
Yeah.
where they're like, well, we can't set, originally they were going to have 50,000 sheep. And so now they're like, well, we can't do that. How else can we provide? And now they're providing an additional 20,000 to the pool, just in a different way.
Do you think, all right, we're going to move off Wolf Game, although there's so many interesting things to talk about because we have other stuff that we want to chat about that's coming in this week ahead. Do you think that like we will see a rug of this scale eventually? Again, clearly speculating, not to concern anyone that like the Wolf Game thing is going to run away with everybody's ETH, right? But like, this is tons and tons of money poured into this thing in 3 days. Like, these dudes, or whoever's working on the team, could run away for life and be totally fine.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see a rug of this scale, Wolf Game or not? Somebody building a game to such epic proportions and then just completely leaving.
I'm trying to think if we already have. Like, I feel like like monetarily, there's been scams that have been the tens of millions of dollars, but
well, in the NFT space, or are you talking like just Web3 DeFi? I mean, DeFi rugs, right, have been massive. Have we seen? I don't know.
Solana's had a ton of rugs like that.
Soul Toads,
But
RIP.
I mean, there's still an Anon team, I think, in this case. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. Yeah.
Thoughts on this? If this was
Maybe.
never in the plan for Wolf Game, why not just migrate to new contract and continue the game as it was before? Not ideal, but definitely possible. Why not?
I think they just maybe they couldn't figure out how to avoid that exploit. Like they couldn't just write a new contract because they didn't know how to. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I get that, but it seems like, yeah, EtherWorks did this, right? I mean, we've seen contracts migrate all the time, even for simple stuff. And I mean, I guess the simple stuff would be easier to migrate, right? Like uninterested unicorns, for example, things like that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, Tony's saying that Evolved Apes had 2.7 million, but when I was looking, when I was doing the Solana article, there was one Luna yield. They ran away with like 10 million. They just completely website off, like unable to unstake. There's just the issue with moving contracts is some people that are your end users don't get that side of it. They don't know how to migrate. Then it could be messy to migrate. I just feel like it's the way they did it, where let's just cut it off here in sheep and let's create a new portion of the game, I think is probably a better way to do it than migrate, just because you're not affecting your current users who already have these bags and they're already playing the game in one way. And this allows new people to enter the game for less than the 5 ETH floor or whatever it was.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's a great way to do it either way, right? Like it's probably a lose-lose regardless.
Well, this could be a good transition. There's like 20 other projects that are trying to do it in a different way now.
Yeah. Do you want to list your top one?
I think Noundles might be my top one because I think Noundles and then Cat and Mouse game are
Cat
the
and mouse
top two
game.
that
Yeah.
like look like they're getting traction. Noundles, I think, was already planning around something similar to this, but because they were already staking, like you were already staking for a few days before Wolf Game even came out. So they already had something in plan with staking and then using what they called rainbows to then purchase something within the game. But I think they are pivoting a little bit to being more like Wolf Game. Um, so I listened it on their AMA last night. You stake rainbows by the difference with them is you don't actually stake them, as in you send them to a different address. They're automatically staking,
Yeah,
and
like subducks. Yeah.
yeah, and so then what happens is if you list them on OpenSea or an exchange, then they're going to be like vulnerable to comparatively to the Wolf game, vulnerable to getting stolen, the rainbows.
Yeah.
So they're going to have evil Noundles, and those evil Noundles are each, I believe it was one per wallet. So if you own any Noundles, you get one evil that you can mint for free, and then you'll also be able to get a companion that earns half of it's 4 rainbows a day for a regular Noundle. The companions are going to earn 2 a day, and then the evil Noundles can steal from others.
I have a question for you here, Lou. Do you think that like a project like Noundles, a project like Cat and Mouse, which we haven't seen, at least like Noundles is out there in the wild right now. Maybe not all the aspects that would be incorporated to become similar to Wolf Game, but do you think that these projects are potentially positioned to succeed in the place of Wolf Game because of all the secondary information they've picked up regarding the contract exploits, etc. Secondly, I should say, just in terms of art, I mean, I'm a Noundles guy. If I were to choose between Noundles and Wolf Game, right? I
Yeah,
think these
I've
things are
always
pretty
liked the
cute.
noun art
Yeah, these are
in
pretty cute,
general.
right?
Um,
Look at this little donut head here.
yeah, and they actually have like traits that you can attach to that are
Yep.
specific, like that banana head. Like there's the apes seem to have been trading at a premium, like different traits
Oh,
people
I'm in the
can
wrong.
like look up and basically look for.
Is it
Um,
in here? What trait?
it's
Not in
probably
body.
probably head
Oh, head. Oh, yeah. Okay.
ape.
Head. Yep.
Yeah, that ape one. So there's only like 70 of them. So it's rare.
These are pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I think like these ones, it definitely seems like they're pivoting to try to catch that next wave. Because
Yep.
the way that I've been talking about it is the first people that are going to have a version of this wolf game are going to be the most successful ones. I think that like third and fourth one, those are the ones that are going to fail because people are burned out with it, or
Yeah.
like they've gone through, say that Downdos have an issue with their contract, or the Cat and Mouse have an issue with their contract. If you just have a couple of these bad experiences, you're not going to want to get into the one after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the other concern here is economically. Has anybody like maybe this is something we should definitely be doing? I don't know that my never used economics degree is ready to break down the the macro or micro aspects of these projects, but like I mean, things are just going straight up right now in terms of Wolf Game, right? And like it can't do that forever,
Yeah, the
right?
problem is they cut off minting new ones when they already had people that were staking and it was stuck for 2 days. So there was this 2 day period where the supply, there was
Right.
like only 150 that could even be listed, and it got down to like under 20 sheep at one point. And
Right.
obviously that's going to increase the price, because if anyone
Right.
wants to get into this game that they're hearing from all their friends are just printing money every day,
Yeah.
then at one point it was I forget what the math was, but when the floor was at like 3 ETH, and you were getting for that sheep somewhere around 1 ETH per day, it just made so much sense to still buy at 3 ETH. It was weird. It was just like the pricing for these. I don't even know how that side of it worked because I felt like people weren't like buying Wolf. So I don't know, or buying Wool. So I don't know how the math was working out, but people are just printing money in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen it with the exploits, right? In contracts, this happens everywhere. Like you have your gigabrain people in this world that they just do this. You know what I mean? Like they're exploiting contracts or they're exploiting the economic inefficiencies of these games. Like that is very much a part of this new. I mean, it happens in traditional things as well, right? It's like people find an edge and then people exploit the edge and people make a lot of money exploiting the edge. And then the edge goes away and then you find an edge somewhere else, right? That's going to happen in all these games. If you're out there and you're exploiting this edge and you want to write an article for luckytrader.com, please let me know. Because I don't think my brain is capable of producing it. But we should talk about it. So Noundles, right? Very similar. We're expecting something similar in terms of the potential mechanics here, right? To maybe capitalize on the Wolf game thing. Cat and Mouse popped up. It's not on the schedule just yet, or maybe we did throw it on the schedule at luckytrader.com. There's no official news regarding when this might launch, but I slid into the Discord this morning. There's like 30,000 members already. Yeah. It's kind of absurd.
They ran an invite contest, so that made it grow pretty fast. Yeah, that's why I was thinking that one was going to be. But then when Noundles came out, Noundles already distributed 10,000 to people. They already have people staking rainbows. So that's where I thought they had an edge, and that's why they were sort of sharp to make this pivot.
Look at this stupid thing. I hate mice, by the way. I have
in general.
Yeah, no, I have a couple like major fears. Like I hate heights. I hate mice. I'm terrified of mice. Yeah, I could probably do this. I could probably do the cat and mouse game. I expect though that if and when this thing drops soon-ish, right? Maybe we don't know exactly. If and when this thing drops, though, it's going to play out. Did you listen to the Dees and Danny pod? Lucky Trader podcast, of course. For any of those who have not listened to it yet, go ahead, download the Lucky Trader podcast, like in any of your podcast platforms, wherever you listen to it. Last week, there was an episode with Dees, of course, notable Twitter NFT personality, fractional.art, and Danny Miranda about his journey. But he was talking about like in his journey during DeFi summer, how the Ponzi's, kept getting shorter. The like Ponzi APY pools kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter. The time frame they existed for, right? Like where you had an opportunity to make money, the time frame kept getting shorter and shorter. So like we just saw Wolf game last for, I mean, it's still lasting, right? Like people are still going to do well on Wolf game for probably a little bit more, at least a little bit more. Now you're going to have cat and mouse come in, and I'm sure you'll see something similar, right? And that cycle may get shorter. And then you'll have another game, Noundles, right? Or another game and another game. And the cycles on them will keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. That would be my guess. Again, not financial advice. Nothing on the show is financial advice. But that would be my guess.
There's one, Wizards and Dragons, I think it's called. This one is coming out. This one, I think, could be something because the people in the Discord, it's like, I don't want to say culty, but the people in the Discord are like very into it. And there are people they have like all this lore. And I have a theory in general where like targeting the like fantasy market and not fantasy football. I'm saying like fantasy games.
Yeah, sci-fi.
Is the RPG stuff like that. I think if you want to gamify things and you're going to target that market, that's the type of market that wants to get into stuff like this. And so they have like, there was a voice channel that was just like wild to listen to yesterday. People were saying, hey, you got to go in, check this Discord out. Like, this is the weirdest, like coolest thing I've hopped in all day. And there's people that I think, if you've seen, there's like exclamation point guard or something like that. And people are just spamming that in chat and they're spamming it on Twitter. And it's got some like Toad vibes to it where people are just like getting really into it. And I think that could be one that could do something just because people are attaching themselves to it in that way.
Yeah. So Yeah, we just talked at length about Wolf Game for those who were maybe new and joining on their lunch breaks here on the East Coast. Wolf Game talked about cat and mouse, wizard and dragons, noundles, all as like variations and or slight, modifications of each other, as things to pay attention to in the week to come. Lou, are you expecting new like info from noundles to drop at any moment about this? Or have they been slowly
Yeah,
dropping more info?
basically at some point. So they had last night. They did a snapshot. So if you had delisted Noundles in your wallet as of like midnight, um, those ones are going to get the airdrop. I don't know if it's an airdrop or you're going to mint it, but it's free. So I think you can mint an evil one. But they haven't come out with a date yet, so they're probably going to come out with a day. So what we saw is this rush to buy Noundles, and the floor went from like 0.12 up to like 0.4, and then right after a snapshot, it dropped way back down to like 0.2, and now it's around 0.35 again.
Yeah.
So basically, they are how should I word it? Like they're, instead of you staking it, it's more if you have it not listed. So it's not going to be like sheep where it's going to, you don't have the ability to list, so you can't, and then supply shortens. This is more like if you're willing to have it delisted. So as of now, that's all we know. But at some point this week, we're going to like learn more, and they're going to start that side of the game. The rainbow coin started trading. I don't know if you've been looking at that at all.
Is that only on Dex Tools right now?
Yeah. So it was, I don't know what it opened at, but when I was first looking, it was $2.50, and now it got over $20 on trading. So people have been trading that a little bit today. And I mean, for quick math, let's say it's $20. If you're earning 4 a day, that's $80 per Noundle.
Good math.
Which
Good quick math.
Which, I mean, I don't want to like compare it to the Wolf game because that number is outrageous. But basically, it's decent. If it's holding at that coin amount, then it's like a decent return, I'd say, versus some of these other projects that we've seen. Like I think Mutant Cats were around that when they started, also like the return per day. But I think that's going to hold up a lot of these projects, is what is your return per day? Because if it's too low, people are just going to move on to the next thing, because you can just sell your item and then make more by selling it versus holding it for a week or whatever.
Right. And this is one of the huge concerns for all these utility type token games, right? One, they can't actually guarantee you return because that's a huge regulatory risk.
Yeah.
So like you need to definitely be cautious about be cautious about all of your investments in the NFT space, but like this game wave, right? Wizards and Dragons, Mouse Cat, Wolf Game, whatever, right? If there are promises of dollar value, economic passive income, whatever, that is something just to be concerned about. And not likely, maybe, I don't know. There's a chance, a non-zero chance, it could be completely shut down as a result of regulatory concern because of the security stuff. So there's that. And secondly, I would just say is you're exactly right. I mean, that's the shrinking window of these projects. You have a finite amount of time until everybody moves to the next one where the return is greater, right? I mean, this is exactly what Deez was talking about on the Lucky Trader Pod. And so something to definitely be aware of and know before you hop into these projects that, like, yes, for the first few days, you may make $80 a day with each Noundle or whatever the case may be, right? But like over time, likely to diminish. And you don't want to be caught holding the bag. Hopefully not.
Yeah, and so in the chat they're asking about the Wizards of Dragons game. On Twitter, it's WND game. I guess I could just put that in there. WND game is what they're calling it. At least that's the Twitter handle. So if you wanted more info on that one.
Okay, cool. Let's use this as a jumping off point to a couple other things. We were talking about kind of the weirdness of some of these mechanics and stuff. This is a look ahead show to the week. Everybody, of course, most interested in these projects, so it's good to spend a whole host of time here on these. I dropped something on our sheet for the week, Lou, that looked a little interesting to me. It's available on the Lucky Trader schedule page. I'm going to pull up the schedule because I want to share a few other notes for folks who have not seen this just yet. So if you go to the schedule page, luckytrader.com, accessible via the schedule tab here up top, you're to see, all the projects that are dropping in the next week, or actually this extends out far beyond that. Should we have dates, or at least whatever placeholder date from a particular project? If you scroll throughout this week a little bit, you get to the 24th, which is Wednesday, I believe, the day before Thanksgiving. This was a project. We do cover Solana projects on the drop page, and we'll have project overviews for them. As of right now, we don't officially support the Project Explorer, the Asset Explorer that I was showing for Noundles. This was an interesting one that caught my eye, Lou. Hedgehog Markets. The first 5,000 of 10,000 total Hedgehog NFTs, dropping 5,000 at 0.5 Sol. Hedgehog.markets. You can learn a little bit more description here. This is another unique, maybe not necessarily super unique, but another, people are pushing the edges on what can we do with NFTs, what can we do with staking, what can we do with participation, right? We've seen fantasy football projects and now all these games as well for staking and stuff. Hedgehog.markets. Am I sharing my screen? Yeah, I am. Okay. Yeah. Hedgehog.markets, no loss, so lossless competitions, basically like prediction markets, lossless competitions coming soon. So you can actually explore into these and learn a little bit more about it. But more or less, you get a Hedgehog NFT. That NFT allows you to then, with some staking, allows you to enter these kind of prediction markets. So there's one $100 prediction market for European football, November, whatever. I'm not exactly sure what the dates are here. I know nothing about football. Nevertheless, you eventually, right, can earn their in-game currency if your predictions are most accurate, or your ROI, right, like your total return on investment of these in-game currency tokens. You see this ROI leaderboard over here is highest. And if you're on that leaderboard, then you get paid back out in terms of the staking rewards. So everybody stakes their USDC. I know this is a little confusing. So stake USDC, the yield gets put into a prize pool, and then you basically predict things. And if you're one of the better predictors, you then get some of that yield pro rata based on your performance. So it truly is lossless, right? You can't lose. It's free to enter. It's super interesting. Just thoughts, Lou. So I don't know if you had seen that.
The NFT is like a membership card?
More or less. Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. If I'm
and then you can only bet as much as you have earned. So if people that have more NFTs can grow their balance faster.
No, I must have messed up something in my explanation. I don't quite think that.
What are you betting? Are you betting?
Oh, sorry. Funds? I mean, you're just predicting. You're not actually wagering anything, of course, right? So you're trying to predict what happens. And if you're better at predicting than other people, your ROI on the in-game currency that you earn is higher. Does that make sense?
So it gives you a factor in a way. A multiplier.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure I'm explaining it right either way. Nevertheless, see, this is the complexity we were talking about. I'm not even sure I know exactly how to explain it appropriately. There is a little beginner guide here on the site. What are no loss competitions? How it works, right? So you stake it. They earn yield on it. At the end of the competition, all participants regain access to the amount of USDC they staked, regardless of performance. And then those that are in the top of the ROI leaderboard also recoup some of the yield generated. So it gives an example.
Have you ever been in one of these prediction markets?
I have not actively participated. Though
yeah, there are some that are their own coins that have tried this.
Is this similar to Augur?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like Augur to me. But in this sense, instead of that, you're betting with Augur that you've purchased. Here, it's you bet. I guess that's what I'm not getting is like where are the payouts coming from?
So the payouts come from the yield of the USDC. So everybody stakes USDC, right? US dollar coin, on Solana via Port Finance. The yield generated from that, I don't know what the APY is right now on USDC on Port Finance, but I'm guessing it's like, I don't know, 10 to 20%, somewhere in that. So that yield that's generated is then returned via the prize pool. And you can't lose what you stake. So if you stake more, you're helping generate more yield, right? Which would theoretically increase the prize pool potentially. I don't know. Anyway, just an interesting game that's coming. It is a little complex, and even too complex for me to adequately explain here. Something that's coming in the week. We had a note here from Jim. Noundle snapshot extended until 3 p.m. Eastern today.
Perfect. And more time.
Shit.
That's probably why it came back up in price.
It's time. So Noundles get you exposure to one evil Noundle, right?
And a companion.
And a companion Noundle. What would a companion Noundle look like? Is it a little baby?
Little baby Noundles.
It's
going to be a smaller, maybe. I mean, that sounds, honestly, like that's probably what it is. It's a little version of it. The little meta came and went in like 2 days, and then now we're now in wolf, like hunt meta, predator meta, maybe Preda meta. Ooh, maybe I'll start using that.
Preda meta. Yeah, we've got a few other things to get to from the list that are coming up later today. Actually, this one's later today, but Artbox curated again. The Artbox curated market has been reasonable, right? I mean, Edifice has been doing well. That was the one, the return of Artbox curated. That was just a few weeks ago. Last week was is it Asemica? Am I saying that right? I believe so. It was the typography one from Emily Adelman, I believe. And then we have this one dropping later today, Autology, at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's a collection of 1,024 Dutch auctions starting at 8 ETH. 25% of primary proceeds distributed across multiple charities, first being lung cancer research. So good cause here as well. Lou, any take on this first glance of the, your example mint here? This isn't necessarily super appealing to me.
I think it looks cooler than the last one. I tried to look up this Stegodon. I didn't really see anything on it, but that's the problem with these is when they only mint one, like you don't know. So maybe I'd watch and see what the other ones look like. We saw Edifice went on a run, but I don't know if that Asemica one ever did. But it also, we worded it as it's like very niche, like only people that were like into topography would really care about it. Everyone else is like, this doesn't look cool. So I think I'd watch it. I would guess that it lasts a little longer than the previous ones. I don't think it's going to be minting out at 3.4 or whatever that one is. But they have more breakouts. So there's a lot between like 2.4 down to 1 is like every 0.25. So it's a little less game theory as like the Edifice one was, where it had that big gap. So I don't know. I could see this falling under 2. Are they planning on doing any sort of like staking and ability to steal sheep? Because I think if they did that, people would be in.
Do you think Artblocks or like any of these other projects will ever push the needle quite like that? I'm not, I think they're pretty set in what they've been dropping. I think they've, done quite well.
Try to like catch on to the wave of something else. I don't know. Yeah, I think they want to keep their own brand as like we're about art and generative art and featuring artists that. Yeah, I don't think they'll try to pivot too much.
Yeah, I don't suspect they'll ever need to. It'll be interesting. Like we were doing the Top Shot Artbox comparison a little bit last week, right? We were talking about series and whether or not those things would matter. You talked about like completionists, right? Wanting to complete sets. But that's more of like a personal thing. It's not an Artbox driven thing. I wonder if Artbox would ever complete Series 5. Something happens. We've seen individual artists do some things, right? Like Singularities dropped something, or maybe the Seahams dropped something.
Well, Fractional's been doing the complete sets. I don't know if you've ever gotten into one of those, but they've been doing it by each set. So a way to, if you really like one of the series and you think it's better than a different series, you could like invest in the series in that way.
Right. But that's not a reward coming from art blocks and or the artists themselves.
You mean like a
for
token?
Collecting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
art blocks would like support its early holders or its series collectors. Clearly speculation here. No like official news from anyone at art blocks about anything like this, but that would be interesting, right? Like, because Top Shot does like showcase challenge, right, or whatever. It'd be interesting. It would be a game that not many people could play. Let's say that, unless it was like a factory game, right? Maybe that's a way to get some of the factory projects sold out. I don't know.
That could be a cool idea. Yeah, like a factory, like version of collecting, like collector scores.
Yeah, we'll see. Keep moving through the roadmap for this week. Here's another interesting. We talked about Bored Apes being kind of top of mind. We had Kingship and all the Bored Ape stuff
Did you
from
see
last
that
week.
big sale earlier today in Bored Apes?
I did not. I've been X'd out, heads down.
Yeah, there's a gold ape went for 675 ETH.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. Gold fur ape goes for 675 ETH. Yeah, pretty good.
It was a karate ape, I think is. I don't know if that's what they specifically call them as on there, but he had like the headband, like the karate headband. So yeah, that one was earlier today.
Jeez, that's a lot. Well, anyway, Bored Ape Yacht Club news here. So part of the allure potentially for Bored Ape Yacht Club, right, is the ability to take commercial rights and usage of your ape. We've seen that with Kingship, right, in the last few weeks. Jimmy McNeilis using his 4 apes to build an NFT band signed on with Universal Music Group. We've seen it with Jenkins Valet, right? Like a whole host of like kind of interesting projects take advantage of the commercial usage rights. This week, supposed to be dropping this week, though I don't know the announcement has been official. It said mid-November, mid to late November. So we have it on the schedule right now, but this is everything NFT-wise is subject to change based on delays and contract exploits and all that stuff. Nevertheless, Bored Breakfast Club. It is a selection of NFTs, 10,000 unique breakfast scenes. So you can kind of get an example here of what you're looking at. The reason I throw it on here is it's Bored Ape relevant, right? And also it's taking advantage of actually something similar to what Quantum Quokkas is doing. Remember we spoke with Max Miranda, Danny's brother, about Quantum Quokkas, but this is like a membership card to coffee, to kind of like a coffee membership subscription box, right? It's being adorned with the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo with a commercial rights usage here, right? Bored Breakfast Club coffee. Here it is, how it works, right? All accessible at boredbreakfastclub.com. You can find it on the schedule page at luckytrader.com as well. But pretty interesting. 4 potential blends based on sellout. You see you got some mutated apes in here. Lou, I think we talked about this. You had sort of naturally expected that this type of utility will start to inch its way into basically everything.
Yeah, it's I think the first big one that we saw was that Jenkins vault. But I think the fact that you're trying to make your own brand, and people are now able to do that with the Bored Apes because it's become its own brand. So you can have your own brand around your own ape. And it originally started as just a profile picture, but I think now people are moving that more towards, I want people to recognize my profile picture on like a bag of coffee, or like we saw Sandejo. Yeah, Sandejo on the Colts yesterday had a Bored Ape on his cleats. And we've seen that with
Tyrese Halliburton.
Right? And so I think it's becoming more of like this is my ape versus just apes in general. And that's like the cool part of just what the Bored Apes have done in general by giving those rights out. to the owners. So I thought this one was kind of cool. It's a little different, and it's better than all these other projects that are, oh, little baby 8, so we're not affiliated with. It's not like we're not affiliated with. It's more of we're helping grow the brand, which I think is cool.
Right. This is one of those benefits of the commercial rights that we've chatted a little bit about, right? Is you're allowing individuals who are actively participating in your ecosystem to grow themselves and with their own ideas, but also at the same time, you're adding benefits, quite literally adding benefits back to the larger Bored Ape Yacht Club brand, because you're having people push. It's almost like a multi-level marketing thing, but like not necessarily your old high school friends trying to take advantage of your wallet.
Yeah.
Just another interesting project here that I expect you'll see these things with toads if they haven't already happened. Like there's not a toad coffee. Bored Apes make sense to have coffee, I think. I don't know. They just seem like
They're bored.
Yeah, maybe they're bored, but I don't know what the toad equivalent would be. Like I have no clue what the toad equivalent would be.
I don't know. It's toads are in what type of water? Would they be in like a pond, like fishing, rods?
Fresh water.
Fishing
I think
equipment?
toads are fresh water. Yeah.
What about like a fish shop? Toad fish shop.
Or like gummy worms. Are worms and toads don't eat worms, do they? I don't know. We've gone off the rails here. Curious about, so we've walked through most of what was listed for this week. Chatted about Wolf Game, chatted about Avastars Replicants, talked about Art Blocks, talked about Board Breakfast Club now, talked about Cat and Mouse, Wizards and Dragons, a whole host of other things to come from this week. We'll have CloneX starting next Monday. So we've held it off of today's call or show just because it is actually taking place next Monday. Did we get during this call, did Merry Mods start to reveal at all?
Yes, I think Merry Mods are revealing now. I'm not sure if you got into those at all. They're starting to reveal, but I don't think. Let me see. I'm checking on so some of them are coming up now. I see on OpenSea, and then we have them on our end.
Yep.
As they come in, Lucky Trader will start updating the rarities. We have, I don't know if you're going to pull them up or not, but they kind of look a little different art style wise than some of the other ones that we've seen. This is kind of that one. It kind of reminds me of like the Frozen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know what? The other reason I bring this up, one, we had Tom Bilyeu on the show to talk about Merry Mods last week. So if you're looking for a little bit more insight about Merry Mods, you can go back, listen to that show either on YouTube or on Lucky Trader podcast streams, wherever you get that. Revealing today, right? If you listen to that show, you got into Merry Mods, you can see this. You'll notice that, as Lou pointed out here, we don't unveil rarity rankings until everything is kind of unfurled itself, just so that we're as accurate as we can possibly be. Because as more things come in, the rarities are always obviously naturally shifting. So we don't want somebody to come in and snipe one at the top here because they think it's most rare, and we're actually just waiting on more information. So that's why you see the little dash. That'll update itself pretty quickly here. I think it looks like Frozen. The other reason I brought this up is like it's Thanksgiving week here in the United States, and I didn't see a single turkey or Thanksgiving themed NFT project. We saw it with like everything went nuts during Halloween, right? Halloween bears and spicy pumpkins. And we saw like a resurgence in the market, and nobody spun up like a cornucopia NFT. What the hell?
Yeah, I was wondering if like we're going to see that pop up this week. I think one of these like wolf copycats that were coming out was a turkey-based one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't know. Like you said, like I haven't really been seeing that, which is kind of weird to me because you'd think people are going to try to jump on that craze. Like they did that with Halloween.
Yeah.
Like there was pumpkin skeleton type stuff. So I was really surprised that we haven't seen them, but I think my thought was that was during this like bear, like no one wanted to create a project starting a month ago. So maybe that's why they just held off. And then now we're going to see, because the market's hot again, we're going to see all these like Christmas projects.
That's a good segue. I want to pick your brain about that as well as we look to kind of wrap up the show here. If there are questions about the week ahead, any of the projects we've talked about, please feel free to drop them in the chat now. Lou and I will be happy to address them. You mentioned bullish market. Last few days, it feels like all the money has been sunk into Wolf Game. Pro or con for the market as a whole?
Yeah, because we saw it happen with like the Bored Ape Mutant Apes before. And we kind of talked about this a little last week, where all these other projects that people maybe were holding on to, waiting for a bull run, it seems very, I don't know if the word's targeted, but it seems like people are going after specific projects and those projects are booming, but other ones are kind of like standing to the side. Like now people are off doodles and they're pouring money into the Wolf Game. A lot of people are getting into DeFi, and there's things like the Ohm forks, Olympus DAO. DeFi Kingdoms has been a big one that has been pumping a little the last few days, and big name people are moving their money towards there. So I think maybe it's more of like there's only a few projects that people are attaching themselves to right now, and everything else is like, unless it starts heating up, like that's what happened with the chain runners. Like people saw, oh, someone's buying a bunch of these, and then other people hop on board. I wonder if that's what we're going to see now. It's not like everything moves up together. It's more like specific things are moving up at one time.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a good point. The last time all the money was sunk into a project, things got bad. Of course, the cool thing here is we can actually like monitor what happens now, right?
I think it's a little different now though than that, because all this money is going into Wolf Game, but the people that are buying in at 3 ETH have been getting more back than they got back for Metaverse, if that makes sense. Like, does that help this in this specific case?
Well, because the money still has to come from somewhere, right? It's not like they're still sucking money. Like, even if they are creating more, the people that are in, like, they're still taking money from somewhere else, right?
This is like a general question. Where does this money come from? Because I have no idea where like these thousands and thousands of dollars just like all of a sudden come from.
Well, it's all as a result of liquidity being provided against it, right? So like these tokens, like Wool, for example, have no economic utility. We should say that out front for people that are new to, NFTs.
Yeah, it's used in game.
Right. It's an in-game currency not meant to have any economic value. The only way it gets economic value is that people provide liquidity against the trading pair, right? So that there can be trade. So people are providing liquidity to make a market for this. That's how that happens. And so that's where it's not like new money is actually being created. It's people that are like, putting money against this thing so that trades can then happen and then fees can be dispersed to those people who provided liquidity. But yeah, I mean, it is like an astounding part of all of this is from time to time you think about like, how the hell could there be more money here? Like, where does this all come from? And then you like take a look at how many coins are actually out there, like in terms of even just ETH, right? There are millions, hundreds of millions of Ether, the full coin, 118 million circulating supply, which is a lot, right? And a lot of the people that are holding that circulating supply, 118 million circulating supply, a lot of the people who have a lot of it are like actively participating right now in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And
I think people don't see it a lot because they're thinking of it in NFTs, but like a lot of this money is being made outside of NFTs and by those people that are whales. Like we look at whales and NFTs, but I mean, if you get into the DeFi streets, which we came out with that article last week on Beginner's Guide to DeFi. So it's definitely something to check out because I think the use case of Ethereum and just decentralized finance in general, that's something you're going to probably want to understand a little bit and try to get into. But a lot of these people are putting thousands of ETH into liquidity pools and earning like 10% and staying in there for like a month. And then they take out, 10 ETH and they throw it at the floor of Doodles or something like that. So I think a lot of this money is being made in a sense behind the scenes outside of NFTs. So I think that might be where some of this comes out of the woodwork, where people see this as an opportunity with say the sheep and wolves. Like people see this as an opportunity to make 20% back in a day. And then if it can last for a couple weeks, then all of a sudden like that's where they are looking at as the short-term opportunities, I guess.
Yeah. And this is it. I mean, this is what I was mentioning at the beginning of the show as well, is like people find edges and they exploit those edges for as long as they possibly can. And so you're exactly right. If the APY is in DeFi, of course, I'm sharing that beginner's guide to DeFi that Alex, who's been on the lounge on Fridays, just dropped last week, just a definition of some terms showcasing like what is DeFi. There's a lot of new people to NFTs. What is it? We're going to have more content coming about decentralized finance, how to actively participate as well, in the very, very near future. So please stay tuned to that. But nevertheless, you have people that see 20% there, and then when they realize they can get 50% in NFTs, they just shift their money. You know what I mean? It's like you get super sharp people out there that they got to hit a few buttons and they're going to make a ton of money, and like they do it. And that's how it works. And so looking to exploit where necessary or where possible these little economic inefficiencies or arbitrage opportunities between markets or between platforms. We've talked about the between platform thing. As aggregators come on, maybe that'll start to slide away. But I actually saw a tweet. This is off topic, but saw a tweet yesterday from Doodles. Maybe you posted it. Doodles' first collection on Nifty Gateway to sell for $1 million, or sorry, to eclipse $1 million in trading volume on Nifty Gateway. And this is another arbitrage opportunity. I have actually not. Have you bought? I had bought drops on Nifty, but I have not bought.
Yeah, so I think that's what's unique about this is that it wasn't a drop from Nifty Gateway. They're hosting the ability to trade. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but I'm trying to word it in a way that makes sense. Basically, Lazy Lions you see on there too. So these are things that they've been trading on OpenSea normally, and they didn't drop on Nifty Gateway because that's how a lot of the Nifty Gateway drops are. But what's interesting, you see it's like defaults in US dollars.
I did use a credit card.
Bitcoin Angel. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I bought the drop.
That's the only one that I participated in, and I just did not enjoy the experience like at all. So I sold it for basically what I paid for it and got out.
Yeah, I did quite well on some of those drops earlier in the year. So okay, so here's your chance, right? Talk about arbitrage opportunities. This would be our alpha alert. If you're still watching this show, here's a potential alpha alert. We're listing right now 1.10 Ethereum floor coming from OpenSea on Lazy Lions, which is what? 1.10, 1.1 times, I don't know, what are we at? 40 something, 4,200, 40.
I wonder if you could do that as like it's like 4,200. I wonder if you can do that as a cross platform.
4,220. So just 1 second, Lou. 4,220. So $4,642 floor on OpenSea. 4,500. Now, of course, once you like do the fees in here, now Nifty does take a fee as well, right? Because they're still transacting on the Ethereum blockchain, so it's not like you can just buy it.
Would it show up on your OpenSea?
No, it doesn't. You have like a special Nifty wallet, and then you have to transfer it over to your OpenSea wallet.
But you can connect it to MetaMask. Yeah. This is more similar to what Solana is like, where it's marketplace specific, because there's a lot of Solana arbitrage, I guess, opportunities where, like you said, like some one of the marketplaces has a higher floor than the other. So if
Yep.
you're buying, go to the one with the lower floor. If you're selling, go to the one with the higher floor. So that's one thing that's kind of nice about OpenSea being like the monopoly of, the monopoly on markets for Ethereum right now.
Right. Yeah, that's just when you account for fees, like what we just shared there. Once you account for fees, like there's really no, there's no opportunity there. You can do the same thing with potentially like NFTX pools, right? I've spent some time talking to some people here recently that did a lot of arbing of like mooncats when there was discrepancies between like acclimated versus wrapped, right, and things like that. So there are opportunities out there, folks, and hopefully we'll have more content about that available at luckytrader.com. We've got about 10, 12 minutes here if folks have additional questions about the week ahead. If not, we can sign off a little bit early. Lou hinted at a Solana piece that is in drafts right now, hopefully being published a little bit later today. An introduction for those who maybe are new to NFTs about what is Solana. You've probably heard of it. What is it? How can you actually use it? Are NFTs available? All those questions, hopefully answered during, in that piece. And then more content to come about Solana NFTs as well. What would be a good question from Carlos? Carlos, thank you for showing up this morning. What would be a good entry point for the JRNY pass? JRNY pass. Do I know what that is? JRNY.
I think it's a Dutch auction. That's going on.
Okay. Do you know what the project is? Why am I blanking on so many projects, folks?
I think it was brought up at one point to us.
JRNY. Does that stand for something? JRNY.
I think Carlini was talking about it the other day. It's like JRNY NFT Club. I think it's from that. It's like a futuristic style. There's today is when it starts, and I think it's let me see. It's like a membership card.
NFT that grants you access to future JRNY. What does JRNY stand for? Is that Journey? I'm guessing.
I think it's
private
Journey,
community chat and announcements, exclusive NFT videos, early access to partner NFT projects, and much more. Only post links to the event. Free mint for the next 2 journeys. So we've seen things like this a whole host of times. So like Gen.art, right, is like this. A lot of the membership club NFTs are like this. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about the project or the team, and these are not linked. I don't know if this is their official Twitter accounts or not. Normally, I really love to see these linked to people.
Like, what I'd say is, I feel like these haven't really caught on much. Like a lot of them that I've noticed. What was the Dream Kids? Something like that.
Night Kids.
What happens is you get the mint pass. People get all excited about the ability to make a future one, and then after like the first or second drop, people are like, "Oh, this is all it was," and then they bounce.
Yeah,
that's what I feel like has happened with these in the past. But I think this one had a little more backing involved. One of the leads of this project is like a Bored Ape who
Tony
like
Spark,
a gold Bored Ape. Yeah. So I think part of it is like people are going after, oh, this is like a decent team, and they have like faith in that. But I always question like what's the plan? Like, why are people gonna want feature drops? That's what I always look at with these in the takeaway. Like, are they giving stuff away? Is that what that was? They were like giving an ape away. But yeah, so it's like, oh, you get a free mint, but it's like people outside of that community, why are they going to want to be inside the community?
They are giving away 1 Bored Ape, 3 Mutant Apes, 5 Doge Pound NFTs. So there's a way here. To go back to Carlos's initial question. Unfortunately, I don't even see the price listed on this site, so I don't think I can give you, and not going to give specific instruction about when it makes sense. There is some ways though, like if you know based on how many NFTs there are, the price of those NFTs, you could do just like a little bit of math to figure out your EV for potentially winning a Bored Ape, and it might make sense to mint just because of your, the possibility, the whatever. Just do some math here, probabilities of potentially winning a Bored Ape. That might be enough, enough there. Though I don't know those specifics, unfortunately.
And for reference, here's I think why his question came out is for reference, they've minted almost 5,000 of them, and it's at 2.8 ETH right now. So it seems like the demand is there. It started at 3. It's going down. It drops by 0.028 every 10 minutes, and they've sold almost 4,000 of them. So it seems like there's demand there. But my question is, like, how do you get that value out of it? Like, are these next 2 mints going to each be worth over 1 ETH? That's where I question it in a case like this. I don't know. It's hard to put like a dollar amount on it. But like, why is someone going to want this for more than 2.8 ETH later?
Yeah, I don't see I think you're exactly right. That I don't see like I was looking for an Ether scan so we could maybe take a look at some of the collection. It's popping up. We get the contract address. I'm curious to know like the unique holder count and things like that about this particular project. Now, if a project like this develops that type of demand, it's likely to find its way to luckytrader.com. So we'll have more info and access and data and information to dive into. Dude, 3 ETH, 2.8 ETH. I mean, that's a ton. Like, let me just, you're exactly right, Lou, for like not knowing what we might get, right? Let me go back to luckytrader.com as we kind of wrap up the show here.
It's over 10 grand,
Well, that, just purely in terms of, yes, financial ramifications of investing here, 2.8 ETH gets you a doodle. You know what I mean? Like 2.8 ETH gets you shit. I mean, almost a Meebit, like a Bored Ape Kennel Club, Creature World, almost a Toad. And it's not to suggest in any way that World of Women, right? Like, I mean, and you could do sometimes multiples here. You get a Meadow Hero identity for this.
More established brands.
Right. Not to suggest that Journey NFT and all of its potential benefits can't pay for itself many times over, but we have no clue what's going to happen here. And that's a massive financial backing for most everyone in our audience. Like that is maybe their entire bankroll or more than or multiples of their entire bankroll. And so I think the answer in large part, and this goes for minting any project, is, you're assessing your own personal goals and like where you stand in terms of your own personal finances, what you can potentially see yourself doing with the project as well. Like Alex mentioned on the pod last week, what are your goals of this project? Is it to hold this project? Is it to flip this project? Like that tremendously impacts whether or not it makes sense to mint this at any point in time. So
yeah.
Interesting. I didn't really know too much about that one. That is the case though, as you do the NFT ecosystem, it's impossible to stay on top of every single thing that's happening. Lou, as we look to wrap up here, any thoughts and notes about the week ahead?
I think I'm really interested. One thing we just haven't specifically talked about, but I'm interested to see what happens Wednesday night and Thursday. Just the fact that like it's Thanksgiving and people are going to be more likely offline. Is that going to have a negative effect on the market? Like, is volume going to just be way down those days while people are traveling and like spending time with family in IRL? And then in general, like, how are these not going to be like the hot topic of Thanksgiving?
They're going to be.
So I think the next few weeks are going to be really interesting to see if we're just going to get a ton of people onboarding, trying to figure out like what an NFT is, what Ethereum is. Like at this point, most of it's somewhat mainstream. So I think there's going to be that like person from the family who's the NFT guy who's going to be explaining it to their family. They're going to come to them with questions on like crypto and whatnot. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens after this week now that people start like talking about it at the Thanksgiving table.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be the NFT guy in your family, right?
Yeah, right. It's like, that's the thing is like a lot of people are going to, some people hate talking about it though, right? They don't want to be the guy to be asked all these questions. It happens every year, last few years, like you're the crypto guy, like, oh, should I buy a Bitcoin? Should I buy a Dogecoin? You know? So in that sense, like I'm sure the people are already used to it, but
yeah,
that'll be fun to kind of monitor this week, I think.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It'll give us some talking points next week. Just about the entirety of the market, which projects, right? Like maybe we see some of these projects that are more notable brands, established brands, that you have a lot of sensible people at your, Thanksgiving dinner talking about, you know what? No, don't buy this crazy crap cat and mouse game or whatever the case may be. We have no clue what cat and mouse game might look like. It might be awesome. But instead buy Bored Apes. Like, I don't know how many people can obviously do that, right? But buy Creature World. Maybe we see, kind of an extended blue chip run post Thanksgiving when people can talk some sense into what it is. Internet art dealer, Tony says. Digital art dealer is how I put it. I have no clue. Actually, most of my family at present time is like pretty well aware that I just do weird shit on the internet. And so like, I don't really need to describe to them. But there will be, see some friends from long ago or, girlfriend's family dinner, like needing to describe exactly, hey, what's that new job you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, about that. Yeah. Digital internet art dealer. I like that one. I might use that one.
Yeah, the way that I've explained it, well, it's a little different the way I've explained it to people, I think, but because I use like Fantasy Labs, but for crypto is kind of how I've worded it to people, where it's more like we're an analytics platform for
so much more than that, though,
crypto. Well, yeah, that's how like how would you start explaining it to people? So
yeah,
that's like the broad way of explaining it, and then you can like get more into specifics on it from there.
Yeah. Awesome. So everybody watching, thank you for tuning in, asking questions. Please do head to luckytrader.com for all your NFT news, analysis, content, resources, everything there. More stuff dropping every single day. Some Wolf Game primer that Tony dropped earlier today about some of the most recent info. Beginner's Guide to DeFi, Beginner's Guide ish to Solana, an intro to at least to Solana and Solana NFTs coming a little bit later today, hopefully from Lou, and many, many more things, items of note. We've got hopefully a cool announcement for tomorrow's show with Preston Johnson, just waiting to confirm a little bit later today on that. So lots of content still coming during the week of Thanksgiving. We, of course, will not be in action for Thanksgiving Day specifically, as we allow those to enjoy their holidays and tell more people both about NFTs and luckytrader.com. Please do so. That is your task if you are still watching this show. Nevertheless, I'll sign us out here, Lou. I'm going to try to do so appropriately. Thank you, everyone, for hopping in, being here, and for actively helping to build the Lucky Trader community and brand. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.